let's move on to something a little more fun. I mean, I can't really call this one fun, but there's a thing I saw on Twitter, and honestly, it made me laugh a little bit because of how stupid it was, but I wanted to go ahead and share it with y'all. It's a post about the list of human rights that trans activism is eliminating. I wasn't aware that trans activism eliminated human rights, but yet here we are. Here we go. Let's go ahead and take a look. It said so 0. No, it's got a. It's a list. It's a fair list. So we're gonna go through these one by one and see what the hell this person was even talking about. But let's go ahead and say here and begin with them saying, no one is saying trans-identified individuals should not have rights, civil protections such as housing, employment, etc. Actually, there are people who are saying that. But, you know, let's pretend the worst people in your movement don't exist, right? But what is wrong is that trans activists are erasing females as a protected sex class. No, they're really not. And erasing sex-based protections of women and girls. Read this list and wonder, and then get angry. Here is the list, prepared by Gallus Mag, a blogger and writer in the woman's community. Now, I'm not super familiar with Gallus Mag. I said I thought that's what the right was doing. Yeah, I'm not super familiar with this person, so the only thing I'm going to be able to actually work with is the content of what they say. So, let's take a look here. The first one is removing the legal right of women to organize politically against sex-based oppression by males. How? Where? Why? Like, I hate to say this, but spoiler alert, most of this is going to end up being a how, where, and why for all of this. But I don't see how anybody's legal right to organize politically in damn near any way, shape, or form is being taken away, especially here in the States. Like, you can politically organize and be wrong. It's not illegal to be wrong when you're politically organizing. So let's go ahead and see what the next one is. Remove the legal right of women to assemble outside the presence of men. Well, here's the thing. To the individual who wrote this, trans women aren't women, but I'm sorry to tell you, they are. Whether they've taken HRT, whether they are, currently in the middle of surgeries, whether they've been on all of this stuff for the last, 12 years, or they just started, that's still a woman. Like, once that person has truly and honestly taken that identity upon themselves, that's a woman. Now, it's inarguable that most of those people can and will have easier lives if they are passing women. I seriously doubt anybody with even a modicum of a brain cell would argue against that idea. But nobody is saying that they can't organize outside the presence of men. And damn near any political organization is allowed to ostracize, really, anybody that they want to. Like, that's always been a thing that political organizations can do. Even the Democratic Party has ostracized people out of it. Removing the legal right of women to educational programs created for women outside the presence of men. This one is interesting to me. I'm trying to figure out where the TERFs get the idea that right to educational programs created for women outside the presence of men is so damn important. I don't get it. Because scientists and history educators and everybody who is involved in the creating of those educational materials and programs, some of them might just be men because they might be the experts on those fields. So I don't see why this one matters. I'm sorry, but when you're making an actual thing, when you're making an educational thing, having a vagina does not make you better at writing on the paper. Having a penis does not make you better at writing on the paper. It doesn't change really anything at all. The next one, it says, eliminating data collection of sex-based inequalities in areas where females are underrepresented. Well, that one actually isn't true. Because typically when you are sourcing data, when you are polling for things, there is a way to search for people who are AMAB and AFAB, and there are ways to search for people who are simply trans, who have transition. Usually, a lot of the polling data we have in gathering is going to be based on the person who is doing the polling in the first place. If they write on their sheet of paper, "Are you a man or are you a woman?" and that's all they write, then sure, that may skew your data a little bit when you're trying to just get sex-based data. But if you just want biological sex-based data, then you're going to have to ask that in there. This one is more on the people who are creating the polling data than it is on anybody else. This has nothing to do with trans people. Just says this person doesn't understand the term due diligence. Yeah, like, this is literally a TERF going, I want to be lazy in data collection. I do not want to use accurate language to describe people. I am lazy, and also possibly worthless. Fear me. Now, that's basically what's going on with this list. But the next one we have here is elimination of sex-based crime statistics. So everything I just said about the last one is here as well. When you are gathering your data, it is up to you to grab that data in a way that is exercising your due diligence. If you don't do that, that is on you. It is on nobody else, especially not trans people. Also, trans people only account for like 2% of people in the world, so they're really not skewing your data all that fucking much. Not in the grand scheme of things. This is what you have controls for. This is what you have margins of errors for. Eliminating athletic programs and sports competition for women and girls. Again, this one actually hasn't been happening. No athletic program that I've seen has actually been canceled due to the existence of trans people. The argument typically is like, oh, well, it's eliminating the program effectively because a trans person gets to go in that program. I'm just going to go and say this right now. If you want to have these types of programs for people, and it is so important for you to have these types of programs, then simply have the policy that you need to be in the category that your testosterone levels dictate. Use the scale the Olympics came up with. Measure the testosterone. If somebody is coming in and their body is producing a high amount of testosterone, they will have a genetic advantage over people around them in various things involving strength. Sure, I can go ahead and admit that. So, since we can admit that, then surely you understand that cis women who happen to have a higher level of testosterone due to things like PCOS will naturally fall into these categories and will now need medication to mitigate their testosterone. Now, I'm perfectly fine living in that world. If you want to live in that world, then we can live in that world where we say, okay, cool, some cis women will not be able to participate before taking medication if trans women have to take medication in order to participate in women's sports. Cool. I'll go ahead and just agree with that one flat out. If you need the actual genetic advantages that trans women are supposedly able to have over cis women, then control for the testosterone, because by and large, that is the biological factor you're pissing and moaning about in the first place. I can agree that if you want sports to be as fair as possible, while admitting that they are not fair, then sure. We have to do what the Olympics has been doing for everybody. And now you've created a scenario where in order for trans people to be on the sports team they need to get access to HRT earlier and not later. I'm okay with this world. If you're okay with this world, if that's the one you want, I'm okay with it. We'll go with it. Sure thing. The next one, it says, removing the legal right of women to be free from the presence of men in areas of public accommodation where nudity occurs. If you are in a public area, you will be in the presence of people of multiple genders. I do not know how many times I have to explain this to people. If you are in public, it is expected that other people will be there in public. Holy fuck shit ballsacks. You are in a public area, not a private area. Therefore, there are certain things that you are not expected to have access to, like personal privacy. That includes from people of genders you don't like. Justin says, please give me a citation where it says trans people have a measurable advantage over cis. Trans women who have not undergone hormone replacement therapy do have an advantage. because of testosterone. This is the reason why the Olympics allows trans women to compete in sports by making sure they measure their levels of testosterone, and they check cis women for their levels of testosterone as well. If we are going to argue for the rights of people, then we need to have our data right. There are videos I made in the past where I was very disparaging about that. So, but it's no different than if a cis woman had identical levels of testosterone. You're right, but where cis women are concerned, it is a rarity, versus when trans women are concerned, it is more regular. Thus, if we're going to admit that the one factor that matters here is the testosterone, then we simply deny that away from the body, and now they can compete. The Olympics has had this as a standard for years. 1 year of hormone replacement therapy to lower testosterone levels is what they require in order for trans women to compete. If conservatives want to live in a world where they are forced by law that they will have to write to allow more trans people access to HRT, then we've magically created a better world, and we've done it in a way that the conservatives have to capitulate to. There you go. Like, there's definitely people who are going to rub up against me and be angry about that, but no, here's the thing. I am a pragmatist. If I can envision a scenario where it is more likely where more trans people can get the HRT that they need, then I'm going to fight for that scenario, because that scenario is worth infinitely more to me than the sports I don't care about. That also routinely trans folks will insist on calling cisgender women, especially intersex women, men because of internal parts. Yeah, they're stupid. I can't fix stupid. Let's see here. Elimination of grants and scholarships, board and trustee designations, representative positions, and affirming programs for women. So here's what actually happens, typically. When you are... This goes with the due diligence thing. If you're affirming programs, your attempts to break the glass ceiling, your affirmative action programs are built to try to have an equal number of men and women, then all you do is you modify them so that there is categories for men, women, and trans people. Once you have hit your affirmed quota for trans people, then you can just hire willy-nilly. That's how affirmative action programs already work, where when they're like, hey, we need to have a certain amount of women here, a certain amount of men here, but we also need a certain amount of people of certain races here so that we can have a diverse work environment. This is the same thing. Just take that affirmative action and simply add one more modifier to it, which I'm fairly certain there's already models for affirmative action that already do this. But, you know, let's just pretend we live in a world where people cannot adapt systems to changing environments. Let's see, removing the legal right of women to create reproductive clinics, rape crisis services. When has a trans person gotten in the way of reproductive clinics being created? When the balls has that one happened? Rape crisis services. You know trans people get raped too, right? Why does that have to be a women's only thing? And support groups. You can, again, support groups are a thing you get to create on your own. Bring people in and take people out as you see fit. What? Eliminating media and all public discourse specific to females. Again, bitch, where? Where? Women can have all the shit they want. Nothing is stopping them. Go do your thing. Nobody, like, this is the thing. This is the conservatives' favorite land. This is their favorite thing to exist in. The world in which one group of people they want to strip rights from, and another group of people they want to strip rights from, get to fucking fight each other. This is a conservative's wet fucking dream. Because a world where women, where many conservatives have tried to argue, including people like fucking Lori Alexander, have tried to argue that a world where women are denied the ability to vote. In some cases, some people have argued, especially BGR, Larry Solomon, has argued that sometimes it's okay for women to be denied even the ability to choose their partner.
Yeet.
Jassa Proxy, thank you for the subscription. People who want that world, they love it. When those women end up fighting with other people they want to strip rights from, because it means that their enemies spend their time tearing each other apart instead of protecting each other's rights. Instead of standing with solidarity, you become groups divided. And when your group's divided, you are that much easier to pick apart. And I don't see how TERFs don't realize this, unless, of course, the TERF movement as a whole is actually a giant psyop from conservatives in order to manufacture the fighting between cis women and trans women, and get people to divide their sides between the two of them to make their jobs easier. I mean, the United States has done it with several groups of black people. I'm not sure why they wouldn't fucking do that as a divide and conquer strategy. That's a giant tinfoil hat moment from me, but maybe I'm not wrong on that one. If somebody has any information on that, you know, I have a comment section for that. I'll take a look. Let's see here. Elimination of lesbian-specific organizations and advocacy groups. If my girlfriend wants to eat pussy, I'm gonna point out that that's girl-on-girl action. I'm sorry. I don't see where this one is happening, where lesbian-specific organizations are getting taken away. Eliminating the legal right of lesbians to congregate publicly. Again, it's not the trans people taking that away from you. It's the conservatives who want to take that away from you. I implore y'all. I implore y'all to look at the history of Stonewall, look at the history of gay bars, look at the history of truck stop meetups, where people who could not publicly be themselves hid truck to truck to truck so that they could have sex with their own gender, and the ways in which police were busting that shit all the time back then. If you want to talk about people who were trying to remove your ability to congregate publicly, you don't need to be talking about trans people. I'm sorry. Historically, they have not been the ones in charge of that. Also, think about the hydration, Nani. Elimination of the legal... this is here. Elimination of the legal right for women to have protection from state-enforced sex roles. I'm just going to go ahead and say, the person who wrote this article is likely very upset that there are trans women who are hotter than them. And that makes them very uncomfortable, because they feel like they have to work up to that standard now. It's no secret that a lot of trans people work a lot harder to present themselves as the gender they identify as, because it alleviates their dysphoria, or it makes their gender euphoria go burr. It is way, way harder for somebody who gets to just exist as their gender, no matter what they do, to understand why somebody would try that hard. So maybe that's what they're getting at. But I don't see how state enforcement of that has anything to do with this shit. If anything, state-enforced sex roles don't make much sense here, when the state-enforced sex role for a woman would be mother, and if trans people are more valid, then you're admitting that trans women would be state-enforced mothers. And now we have to have a talk with Naomi again about trans breast milk. This is such a confusing article. This is such a confusing set of beliefs. Elimination of state-enforced sex roles in public education. I see everything that I had an issue with beforehand. Elimination of the patient right of dependent females to hospital facility bed assignments, separate from males. So, the idea here is basically that all men are predators and all men are rapists. We need to do something to fix this fucking stereotype, because cross-sex spaces are not a problem if men are less predatory. It's simple as that. So that's because there's some sex-regulated hospital wards, and I don't see why. A bed is a bed. Treatment is treatment. A woman can rape you just as much as a man can rape you. All it takes is them wanting to. If you think for a minute that a woman is not able to rape you, then I sincerely hope that a predatory one never comes to your house with a screwdriver. But elimination of the right of dependent females to prefer female providers for their intimate personal care requirements. Nobody is eliminating that. You can literally just say, I'd like a cis woman to take care of my gynecology, please. That nobody's going to blink an eye if you're asking somebody who you are more comfortable with to mess with your girly parts. Elimination of the human right of female prisoners under state confinement to be housed separately from male prisoners. Ah, here's the funny one that Dipshit McGee decided to drop in my my email. I think we already went over this one. The statistics don't actually bear out that there's any more of a threat to cis women from trans women being in their area, but there is a higher rate of terrible things happening to trans women when they are forced in male wards. Now, I understand that this may run in complete contrast with the idea of separating them in a hospital ward, but let's go ahead and make one thing very, very clear. Prison is a different environment to a hospital, and that's something we should also work on reforming. Very, very hard. But the statistics don't actually bear out that trans women are the perpetrators here, typically. And then it says here, unlike any other social justice movement in history, the contemporary push for transgender rights are unique in that they are based on eliminating the sex-based rights and protection of women and girls. So, I omitted an argument from all of you. I omitted a very, very important argument in all of this from all of you. Every one of these arguments is very, very funny when you replace cis women with white people and trans women with black people. Seriously, do it as an experiment. Eliminating athletic programs specifically for white people. Removing the legal right of white people to be free for the presence of black people in public. How stupid do all of these arguments operate when all you do is trade out a social category? It's recycled racism. It is recycled homophobia. It is that as well. There are men who are super scared at being in the presence of a gay man, despite the fact that, trust me, your asshole ain't tight enough for them. You've checked. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I thought this was, sad. Hope you enjoy the fan art. Insert end of video tagline here. Hey, welcome to the end of the video. I know that it's definitely a new thing for everybody to deal with, this being at the end of videos instead of the beginning, but I'm hoping people are staying till the end so that they can get to this part where the fan art is getting celebrated as it normally would be. Let's go ahead and hop right in. The first piece of fan art we have here is from Bleck, the Unenunciable. In Owo We Trust, the Skeptic 2022 Bonk said, I present the peak of my artistic ability. The next one we have here is from Shady Shion, Slime Suris Mech, because I was up early and still had stuff open. Looks like a recolor of the Ara Aranator from before. The next one we have here is from Dusnek, and all it says is, I like art. You know what? I like art too. As always, everybody, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, drop it in the Discord. Till then, let's go ahead and go right into the credits. Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability a Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Red Joker, Britzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.